My mother looked me dead in the eyes across the dinner table and said, "I tell people you work in healthcare because I'm too embarrassed to explain what you actually do." My fork clattered against the plate. The rest of my family kept eating like she'd just commented on the weather. My sister Emma smirked into her wine glass. Of course she did. She was a surgeon. The golden child. The one whose accomplishments Mom recited like a prayer at every family gathering. "Mom, I'm a paramedic," I said quietly, hating how small my voice sounded. "I save lives." She waved her hand dismissively, the diamond bracelet Dad bought her catching the chandelier light. "Emma saves lives in an operating room. You drive an ambulance." She said it like I collected garbage for a living. "When are you going to do something that matters? Something I can actually brag about?" The table went silent. Dad cleared his throat and studied his steak. Emma's husband tried to hide his smile. My grandmother looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. And my boyfriend Mark squeezed my hand under the table in what I think was supposed to be comfort, but felt more like pity. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table. Instead, I excused myself to the bathroom and cried silently in the marble sink while my mother's words echoed in my skull. That was 6 months ago. I didn't know it then, but that dinner would be the last time my mother made me feel small. Because everything was about to change. 3 days after that dinner, I was ending a brutal 12-hour shift when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Is this Sarah Mitchell?" A woman's voice, professional and warm. "Speaking," I said, unlocking my locker with one hand. "My name is Rebecca Torres. I'm a producer for Real Heroes, the documentary series on Netflix. We've been following the work of first responders, and your supervisor gave us your name. We'd like to feature you in our next season." I froze, my jacket halfway off. "I'm sorry, what?" She laughed. "I know it's unexpected. We've been reviewing incident reports from your city, and your name kept appearing. The bridge collapse last March? The school bus accident in May? The apartment fire where you went back in 3 times? Sarah, your record is extraordinary." My heart was pounding. "I just do my job." "No," Rebecca said firmly. "You do much more than that. We want to tell your story. Would you be interested in meeting with us?" I looked around the dingy locker room, at my exhausted reflection in the mirror, at the picture taped inside my locker of my family from last Christmas, the one where Emma stood in the center and I was barely visible on the edge. "Yes," I whispered. "I'm interested." Rebecca explained they'd shadow me for 3 months, interview people I'd helped, and edit it into a 40-minute episode. It would air in 8 months. I didn't tell my family. Something told me to keep this close. To protect it. That instinct saved everything. The filming started 2 weeks later. A small crew followed me on calls, documenting everything with a respect I'd never experienced. They interviewed the teenage girl I'd pulled from a burning car, the elderly man whose heart I'd restarted, the mother whose baby I'd delivered in a grocery store parking lot. Each person cried telling their story. Each one called me a hero. But at home, nothing changed. Mom still introduced Emma first at gatherings, still glossed over my career with vague phrases. At Sunday brunch, she spent 20 minutes gushing about Emma's latest surgical success story. "And Sarah," my aunt asked politely, "how's work going for you?" Mom didn't even look up from her mimosa.
"Fine."
Same as always. I caught Emma's eye across the table. She was watching me with that calculating expression she'd perfected, the one that said she knew exactly how much that hurt and enjoyed every second. "Actually," I said carefully, "something interesting is happening at work." Mom finally glanced at me. Oh, I shouldn't have said anything. But the words came out anyway. "I'm being featured in a documentary about first responders." The table went quiet. Mom's smile was thin. "How nice. Some little online thing?" "Netflix," I said softly. Emma's fork stopped midway to her mouth. Dad looked up sharply. My grandmother's eyes widened. Mom recovered quickly.
"Well,
that's surprising. Though I suppose they need to fill content with all sorts of stories." She turned to Emma. "Didn't you have that interview with Medical Today magazine?" And just like that, the subject was changed. But I saw something flash across Mom's face. Something that looked almost like envy. The hardest part of filming was the personal interview. Rebecca sat across from me with the cameras rolling and asked, "Why did you become a paramedic?" I gave the standard answer at first, wanted to help people, exciting work, makes a difference. But Rebecca shook her head gently. "Sarah, I've interviewed 23 first responders for the series. Every single one had a deeper reason. What's yours?" I looked at the camera, at the small red light blinking. I thought about my mother's disappointed face, about growing up in Emma's shadow, about every time I'd been dismissed or overlooked or told I wasn't good enough. I wanted to matter, I said quietly. I wanted to be someone who couldn't be ignored. When you're holding someone's life in your hands, when you're the difference between them living or dying, you matter. You're seen. You're needed. You're essential. My voice cracked. I spent my whole childhood being compared to my sister. Nothing I did was ever enough. But when I'm working, when I'm saving someone, I'm enough. I'm more than enough. Rebecca's eyes were shining. Does your family understand that? I laughed, but it came out bitter. My mother tells people I work in healthcare because she's embarrassed to say I'm a paramedic. She thinks driving an ambulance isn't prestigious enough. The camera kept rolling. I wiped my eyes. But I've restarted 19 hearts. I've delivered 4 babies. I've pulled 13 people from burning buildings. And my mother has never once said she's proud of me. Rebecca reached over and squeezed my hand. She will. 2 months into filming, Emma called me. This was unusual. We rarely spoke unless forced to at family events. "I heard you've been filming that documentary thing," she said, her tone casual. Too casual. "Yeah. It's going well. Mom mentioned it. She's worried you might say something that makes the family look bad." A pause. "You know how she is about appearances." There it was. The real reason for the call. "I'm not saying anything bad about the family, Emma." Good. Because it would be unfortunate if this little project caused problems. Mom's country club friends watch Netflix, you know. It could be embarrassing for all of us if you come across as bitter. My grip tightened on the phone. Bitter. You know what I mean. The whole underappreciated, middle child thing. It's not a good look, Sarah. I almost hung up. Almost. But something made me say, "Are you worried I'm going to outshine you?" Emma laughed, that crystalline, practiced laugh she used at hospital fundraisers. "Oh, sweetie, it's a documentary about ambulance drivers. I'm not exactly threatened." She paused. "I just don't want you to humiliate yourself. Or us." After we hung up, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, shaking with anger. Rebecca called an hour later. "Sarah? I just got the most interesting email. Someone claiming to be your sister sent a list of concerns about how you might portray your family. She suggested we might want to reconsider featuring you." "What did you say?" I told her to fuck off. Rebecca's voice was steel. "And that made me want to dig deeper into your story. This dynamic you've described, it's more compelling than you realize. The audience needs to see it." That's when I knew this wasn't just a documentary anymore. It was my reckoning. Filming wrapped in June. Rebecca called me in July with news. "We've edited your episode. Sarah, it's powerful. But there's something else." She paused. "The network loved it so much they're making your story the season premiere. And they're submitting it for Emmy consideration in the Outstanding Documentary category." I couldn't breathe. "Emmy? It's a long shot, obviously. But the network believes in it. Your story resonates. The contrast between your heroism at work and the dismissal at home, it's devastating and inspiring. Viewers are going to love you." The episode would air in October, 3 months away. The Emmy nominations would be announced in September. "There's one more thing," Rebecca said. "They want to do a live premiere event. Red carpet, press coverage, the whole thing. Would you bring your family?" I thought about my mother's face, watching me walk a red carpet. About Emma's carefully controlled expression when she realized this wasn't a little online thing. "Yes," I said. "I'll bring them." I didn't tell my family about the premiere yet. I wanted to wait for the right moment. I wanted them to be surprised. What I didn't know was that someone else was about to make their own surprise move. It started with a phone call to my mother from Emma. I know because my grandmother, who'd never approved of Emma's treatment of me, told me everything. Emma called your mother in a panic, Grandma said quietly over coffee. Said she'd heard rumors that your documentary makes the family look toxic, that you painted your mother as abusive. She suggested your mother should watch it early to prepare for damage control. That's not what it is, I said, frustrated. It's about my work, my life. Yes, I talked about not feeling supported, but I know, sweetheart. But Emma planted a seed. Now your mother is convinced you've betrayed the family. She's telling everyone you've created a hit piece about them. I felt sick. Grandma, the episode doesn't even air for 3 months. Doesn't matter. Emma's already framing the narrative. By the time people actually see it, they'll be watching through the lens she created. Grandma's eyes were sad. She's always been threatened by you, Sarah. This is just her protecting her territory. That weekend, Mom called. Her voice was ice. I hear you've made quite the spectacle of our family. That you've told Netflix we're monsters. Mom, that's not. Emma told me everything. How you portrayed me as unsupportive and cruel. How you made yourself into a victim for entertainment. Her voice shook with anger. I have supported you your entire life, Sarah. I put a roof over your head, sent you to college. You told people you were embarrassed by my career because you were wasting your potential. You could have been anything, and you chose to be someone who saves lives. I was shouting now. I'm sorry that's not impressive enough for you, but it matters to me. She hung up. My phone exploded with messages from family members. Emma had been busy. This was war now. I was spiraling when Mark found me crying in my apartment. But instead of comfort, he said something that shocked me. Maybe your mom has a point. I stared at him. What? I mean, was it necessary to air family drama on Netflix? That's pretty harsh, Sarah. He shifted uncomfortably. Emma texted me. She's worried about you. Said you might be having some kind of breakdown. Something cold settled in my chest. Emma texted you. She's just concerned. We all are. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Maybe you should apologize to your mom before this airs. Smooth things over. I looked at this man I'd been dating for 2 years. Really looked at him. And I realized he'd always been more impressed by Emma than by me. He'd always lit up when my sister walked into a room. Get out, I whispered. Sarah, get out of my apartment. We're done. He left, and I sobbed until I couldn't breathe. My phone rang. Rebecca. I heard about the family situation, she said. Are you okay? How did you? Your sister tried to contact the network's legal department claiming defamation. They forwarded it to me. Rebecca's voice was fierce. Sarah, I want you to know something. I've watched your episode 15 times while editing. There is nothing in it that makes your family look bad. You spoke your truth with grace and dignity. If they feel exposed, that's on them, not you. I wiped my eyes. My own mother thinks I betrayed her. Your mother is scared, Rebecca said. Scared that the world is going to see what she's always denied, that she has an extraordinary daughter she never appreciated. That's not your burden to carry. Something in her words strengthened me. What do? You hold your head high and let your work speak for itself. And Sarah? Trust me, when this airs, everything changes. August and September passed in excruciating silence. My family stopped inviting me to gatherings. Emma blocked me on social media. Mom's friends gave me cold looks at the grocery store. But other things were happening too. The trailer for Real Heroes dropped online in late August. 30 seconds of footage. Me running into a burning building, performing CPR, holding a crying child's hand in an ambulance. And my voice. I wanted to matter. I wanted to be someone who couldn't be ignored. It went viral. 3 million views in 48 hours. My Instagram followers jumped from 300 to 50,000 overnight. People sent messages calling me inspiring, brave, a real hero. News outlets requested interviews. And then, in mid-September, Rebecca called, screaming. We got nominated. I dropped my coffee mug. What? Emmy nomination. Outstanding documentary. Sarah, your episode got nominated for an Emmy. I sat down hard on my kitchen floor, surrounded by shattered ceramic and coffee. Oh my God. The ceremony is in 3 weeks. You're coming as my guest. The network is paying for everything: dress, hair, makeup, the works. Sarah, you're going to the Emmys. I called my grandmother first. She cried. Then I took a deep breath and called my mother. Hello. Her voice was cold.
Mom.
My documentary episode was nominated for an Emmy. The ceremony is in 3 weeks. I have tickets for the family. I'd really like you to be there. Silence. Long, heavy silence. I'll think about it, she finally said and hung up. I didn't hear from her again for 2 weeks. The network flew me to Los Angeles a week before the ceremony. Rebecca introduced me to a stylist who dressed celebrities for award shows. We're going to make you feel like the hero you are, Simone said, pulling dresses off racks. I tried on 12 gowns before we found it, a deep emerald green that made my eyes bright, elegant and powerful without being overdone. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. This is you, Simone said softly. This is who you've always been. Now the world gets to see it. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. We'll be there. Dad, Emma, and me. My heart hammered. 3 words I'd been desperate and terrified to hear. Rebecca noticed my expression. They're coming? Yeah. How do you feel? I looked at myself in that green dress, at the woman who looked confident and strong and important. Honestly, I feel like I'm about to step into a trap. Maybe, Rebecca said. Or maybe this is where you finally show them who you really are. I flew my family to Los Angeles 2 days before the ceremony. Dad seemed proud but uncomfortable. Emma was icy and silent. And Mom looked at me like she was trying to solve a puzzle, like I'd suddenly become someone she didn't recognize, and she wasn't sure if she liked it. We had dinner at the hotel restaurant. The tension was suffocating. So, Dad said, too cheerfully, Emmy nomination. That's really something, kiddo. Thanks, Dad. Emma stirred her wine. Must be a slow year for documentaries. Mom shot her a look, but didn't disagree. I set down my fork carefully. I'm really glad you came. It means a lot to me. Mom's expression softened slightly. Well, you're still family. Still. Even now, even here, it was conditional. But I smiled and said, I love you all. I hope you'll be proud tomorrow. Emma's laugh was sharp. We'll see. The morning of the Emmys, I woke up at 5 a.m. with my stomach in knots. Hair and makeup started at 7. By noon, I was transformed. Rebecca picked me up at 2. She looked stunning in a black gown, but when she saw me, she actually teared up. Sarah, you look like a fucking movie star. The limo ride to the Microsoft Theater felt surreal. Rebecca held my hand. Your family is meeting us there, right? Yeah. On the red carpet. Are you ready for this? I looked out at Los Angeles speeding past. No. But I'm doing it anyway. When we arrived, the noise was overwhelming. Cameras flashing, people screaming, reporters calling out names. Rebecca guided me through check-in, and then, Sarah, over here. I turned. Dad, Mom, and Emma stood at the edge of the red carpet, dressed formally. Mom wore the Dior dress she'd bought for Emma's medical school graduation. Emma looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine in navy blue. And both of them looked deeply, visibly uncomfortable to be there as my guests. A photographer called out, Sarah Mitchell, can we get a family photo? We arranged ourselves. The cameras flashed. Mom's smile was brittle. Emma's was barely there. Sarah, a reporter pushed forward with a microphone. Entertainment tonight. How does it feel to be Emmy nominated? It's surreal and wonderful, I managed. And this is your family? They must be so proud. The reporter thrust the microphone toward Mom. My mother's smile widened. Of course. We've always known Sarah was special. I actually flinched. Emma noticed. Our eyes met, and something dark flickered in her expression. The reporter moved on. We walked the carpet. More photos, more questions. And through it all, I felt my family's resentment like a physical weight. This should have been my moment. Instead, it felt like torture. Chapter 12, the pre-show. Inside the theater, we found our seats. Excellent ones, courtesy of Netflix. Rebecca sat beside me. My family spread along the row. Dad, Mom, Emma. The program listed our category for the first hour of the broadcast. My hands were shaking. You okay? Rebecca whispered. I don't know why they came if they're just going to be miserable. Because they could not come. That would look worse. She squeezed my hand. Fuck them. Tonight is yours regardless. The lights dimmed. The ceremony began. I barely registered the first few awards. I kept glancing at Mom, who was studying the program with intense concentration. Emma was on her phone, probably texting her surgeon friends about how beneath her this whole event was. Then suddenly, and now, the nominees for Outstanding Documentary. My heart stopped. The screen showed clips from each nominated episode. Mine played third, 45 seconds of me pulling a child from a car wreck, the mother's tearful interview, my voice saying, I wanted to matter. The audience applauded. I heard gasps around me, people moved by what they'd seen. I glanced at Mom. She was staring at the screen, her expression unreadable. The presenter opened the envelope. And the Emmy goes to... Time slowed. My entire body tensed. Rebecca grabbed my hand. Real heroes, Sarah Mitchell, guardian angel of city streets. The theater exploded in applause. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Rebecca was screaming, pulling me to my feet. You won. Sarah, you won. I looked at my family. Dad was clapping, genuine joy on his face. Emma sat frozen, her expression shocked. And Mom? Mom's face was white, her eyes wide, her mouth slightly open. I'd won an Emmy. And she'd just realized everything had changed. Walking to that stage felt like floating. The applause was deafening. I kept thinking I'd wake up, that this was some cruel dream. Rebecca walked with me, both of us crying and laughing. We climbed the stairs. Someone handed us the Emmy, heavy, real, unmistakable. The presenter, a famous actress whose name I couldn't even process, hugged me. Congratulations. Your episode made me sob. Then I was at the microphone holding an Emmy, looking out at thousands of people and cameras broadcasting to millions more. My voice shook. I honestly don't know what to say. I'm just a paramedic from Seattle. I show up to work and do my job, and somehow that became worthy of this incredible honor. The audience was silent, listening. I want to thank Rebecca Torres, who saw something in my story worth telling. Thank you to Netflix for believing in this project. Thank you to my colleagues and the people I've had the privilege of helping. You're the real heroes. I paused, my heart hammering. This was it. The moment of truth. And I want to say something to everyone watching who feels invisible, who feels like what they do doesn't matter, who has people in their life that make them feel small. My voice grew stronger. You matter. Your work matters. Your existence matters. And someday, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday, the people who couldn't see your worth will realize what they missed. The applause started before I finished. People were standing. I saw Rebecca sobbing openly. I looked directly at the camera. To everyone who's ever been underestimated, this is for you. As we walked off stage, I glanced toward my family section. Emma had her arms crossed, her face a mask of fury. Mom was crying. The press room was chaos. Photographers, journalists, questions coming from every direction. Sarah, how does it feel? Did you expect to win? What does this mean for your career? I answered on autopilot, still in shock. Rebecca handled most of it, her publicist instincts taking over. Then a journalist asked, Your acceptance speech was very moving. Were you speaking to anyone in particular when you talked about being underestimated? I hesitated. Rebecca caught my eye, giving me a small nod, your choice. I was speaking to everyone who's ever felt overlooked. But yes, I know what it's like to have people close to you who don't see your value. I hope this reminds them and reminds everyone watching that worth isn't determined by other people's recognition. It's intrinsic. Are you referring to your family? My pause was answer enough. The journalist's eyes lit up. I love my family, I said carefully. But like a lot of people, I've struggled with feeling seen and appreciated. Tonight is about celebrating the work first responders do every day. That's what matters. As we left the press room, Rebecca whispered, "That's going to be everywhere tomorrow." I know. How do you feel? I looked down at the Emmy in my hands. Free. My phone had been off during the ceremony. When I turned it on, I had 43 missed calls and over 200 texts. The first text was from Mark, my ex. "Holy shit. You won an Emmy. Can we talk?" I deleted it. The second was from Emma. "We need to leave. Mom isn't feeling well." My stomach dropped. I found my family in the lobby. Mom sat on a bench, Dad beside her, looking helpless. Emma stood apart, radiating anger. "Mom," I approached carefully. "Are you okay?" She looked up at me, her makeup smeared from crying. "How could you?" "How could I what?" "That speech. You humiliated us on national television." Her voice was shaking. "Everyone we know was watching. Everyone heard you talk about being underestimated and undervalued. I never mentioned you specifically. You didn't have to." She stood, her hands trembling. "You stood on that stage, in front of millions of people, and told the world your family doesn't appreciate you. Do you have any idea what you've done?" Dad touched her arm. "Honey, maybe we should talk about this back at the hotel?" "No." "She wants to do this publicly, fine. Let's do it publicly." Mom's eyes were blazing. "You've always been so desperate for attention, Sarah. Always playing the victim. Poor Sarah, living in Emma's shadow. Poor Sarah, whose mother doesn't appreciate her precious ambulance job." People were staring now. Other guests, celebrities, industry people. Someone had a phone out, recording. Emma stepped forward. "Mom's right. That speech was a calculated attack. You wanted to make yourself look good by making us look bad." I felt something crack inside me. All the years of being dismissed, minimized, compared. All the times I'd swallowed my hurt and tried harder to earn their approval. I was done. "You told people you were embarrassed by me," I said quietly. "You said my work didn't matter. You compared me to Emma at every opportunity and made it clear I was the disappointment." My voice grew stronger. "I won an Emmy tonight. An Emmy. For being good at my job. For saving lives. And your first reaction is to attack me?" Mom's face went white. "That speech wasn't about you," I continued. "It was about every person who's ever felt what I felt. But if you heard yourself in it, maybe you should ask yourself why." Emma laughed bitterly. "This is unbelievable. You've let this go to your head." "No." For the first time in my life, I'm seeing clearly. I looked at each of them. "I love you. All of you. But I'm done apologizing for being successful in a way you don't understand or approve of." I held up the Emmy. "This is mine. I earned it. And whether you're proud of me or not, I'm proud of me." The silence was deafening. Then Dad spoke, his voice quiet. "We should be proud of you. I'm sorry it took this long for me to say it out loud." Mom looked at him, betrayed. Emma's mouth fell open, and I started to cry. We didn't speak on the ride back to the hotel. The silence was suffocating. When we reached the lobby, Emma pulled me aside. "You've destroyed this family," she hissed. "Mom is humiliated. Her friends are already calling, asking if it's true that she's unsupportive. You've made us a joke." "I made you a joke? Or did your reaction to my success make you one?" Her eyes narrowed. "Don't act like you're better than me, because you won some award for a sob story documentary. I save lives in an operating room every day. You drive an ambulance. There's no comparison. Then why are you so threatened?" She actually recoiled. "I'm not. You've been sabotaging me since filming started. Calling Rebecca, warning Mom, poisoning everyone against this before they even saw it." "Why?" "Because for once, I was getting attention that wasn't about you. You're delusional." "No." "I'm finally seeing you clearly." I stepped closer. "I've spent my whole life wanting your approval. Wanting Mom's approval. Trying to be good enough. And you know what? I'm done. I am good enough. I've always been good enough. And if you can't handle that, it's your problem, not mine. Emma's face was flushed with rage. You're going to regret this. No, I said quietly. I really don't think I will. I walked away, leaving her standing there. In my hotel room, I finally broke down. All the adrenaline, all the emotion came pouring out. I sobbed into my pillow until I couldn't breathe.
My phone rang.
Grandma. I watched the ceremony, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Sarah, I am so incredibly proud of you. I cried harder. Grandma. Your mother called me. She's devastated, but not for the reason you think. Grandma sighed. She's devastated because she finally saw what I've been telling her for years, that she has an extraordinary daughter she's taken for granted. That speech you gave, it was like holding up a mirror, and she didn't like what she saw. I didn't mean to hurt her. Yes, you did. And she needed to be hurt. Sometimes people need their comfortable denial shattered. Grandma's voice was firm. You did nothing wrong tonight, sweetheart. You told your truth. If that made them uncomfortable, good. Maybe they'll finally change. After we hung up, I looked at the Emmy on the nightstand, gleaming in the lamplight. I'd won, but it felt like I'd lost my family in the process. I woke up to my phone exploding. Thousands of notifications. My Instagram had gone from 50,000 followers to 800,000 overnight. The videos were everywhere. Someone had recorded the lobby confrontation with my mother. The clip of my acceptance speech had 20 million views. News outlets were running stories. Emmy winner's emotional speech about being underestimated, and paramedic Sarah Mitchell's family drama unfolds after big win. I felt sick. Then I started reading the comments. She spoke for everyone who's ever been treated like they're not enough. Her mother's reaction proves exactly what she was talking about. Instead of celebrating her daughter's success, she made it about herself. I'm a teacher, and my family acts like I'm wasting my potential. This made me cry. Emma's face when Sarah won was everything. Pure jealousy. Thousands of messages from people sharing their own stories of being underestimated. Parents who didn't support their choices. Siblings who overshadowed them. Families who couldn't celebrate their success. I'd accidentally started a movement. Rebecca called. Have you seen the news? Yeah. Netflix wants to do a follow-up special. They want to interview you about the family reaction about what you said in your speech. Sarah, you've become a voice for people who feel invisible. I just wanted to be a paramedic and do my job. I know, but sometimes our stories become bigger than us. You can say no, but this could help a lot of people who need to hear that their worth isn't determined by other people's approval. I thought about all those messages. About people saying I'd given them courage. Okay, I said. I'll do it. My mother didn't call. Emma sent one text. I hope you're happy. You've made us a tabloid story. But Dad called that evening. Sarah, I need to say something. I've been complicit in making you feel less than for too long. Your mother's always been forceful, and I took the easy route of not contradicting her. But you were right last night. You've always been extraordinary, and we failed to see it. His voice cracked. I'm proud of you. I should have said it years ago. I cried. Again. Thanks, Dad. Your mother is struggling. She's not ready to admit she was wrong, but give her time.
Time.
I'd given them my whole life. But maybe, finally, it was time to focus on myself. Netflix scheduled the follow-up interview for 2 weeks later. This time, they wanted to dig deeper into the family dynamics, the response to my Emmy win, and what it meant to speak out about feeling undervalued. The interviewer was Oprah Winfrey. I nearly passed out when Rebecca told me. Oprah watched your episode. She watched your acceptance speech. And she wants to talk to you. Rebecca's voice was odd. Sarah, do you understand what this means? I sat in the chair across from Oprah, trying not to visibly shake.
She smiled warmly.
Sarah, let's start with the obvious question. When you gave that acceptance speech, did you know how much it would resonate?
No.
I was just speaking from my heart. I've spent so much of my life feeling invisible, feeling like I didn't measure up. Winning that Emmy was validation that what I do matters. I wanted other people who feel that way to know they're not alone. Tell me about your family's reaction. I hesitated. This was my chance to walk it back, to smooth things over. Instead, I told the truth. My mother told me she was embarrassed by my career. My sister consistently dismissed my work as less important than hers. When I won the Emmy, instead of celebrating with me, they confronted me in the lobby, told me I'd humiliated them, made my achievement about their discomfort. Oprah's expression was compassionate but fierce. How did that feel? Devastating. And clarifying. Because it confirmed everything I'd always known but tried to deny, that my worth to them was conditional on meeting their expectations. And when I succeeded on my own terms, they couldn't handle it. What do you want them to understand? I looked directly at the camera. That love shouldn't require you to diminish yourself. That families should celebrate each other's successes, not compete. And that refusing to be small anymore isn't betrayal, it's survival. The interview aired a week later. Another 10 million views in the first day. And my mother finally called. I've been watching you on television, talking about our family to strangers. Mom's voice was tight, controlled. Everyone is asking me about it. My book club, my friends at the country club, people at church. They all want to know if I'm really the terrible mother you've made me out to be. Mom, I never said you were terrible. You didn't have to. You've painted a picture, Sarah. And now everyone sees me as this cold, unsupportive monster. Is that what you wanted? To destroy my reputation? I took a deep breath. What I wanted was for you to be proud of me. That's all I've ever wanted. I've always been proud of you. No, you haven't.
You've been disappointed in me.
There's a difference.
My voice was steady now, calm.
You wanted me to be like Emma. You wanted a daughter you could brag about at dinner parties. And when I chose a different path, you made sure I knew it wasn't good enough. That's not fair. You told me you were embarrassed by my job, Mom. You said that to my face. At a family dinner. In front of everyone. I felt tears coming but pushed through. I won an Emmy for doing the work you were ashamed of. And instead of apologizing, instead of celebrating with me, you're calling to tell me I've ruined your reputation. Do you hear yourself? Silence. Long and heavy. Then, quietly. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if you can, I said honestly. But if you want to try, it starts with actually seeing me. Not the daughter you wish I was.
Me.
The person I actually am. She hung up without saying goodbye. I sat in my apartment, holding my phone, feeling empty. Grandma's words echoed. Sometimes people need their comfortable denial shattered. I'd shattered it. Now I had to wait and see if anything grew from the rubble. 2 days later, Emma showed up at my apartment. I almost didn't let her in. 5 minutes, I said, opening the door. That's all you get. She looked different. Tired. Her perfect exterior cracked. I owe you an apology. I blinked. I'm sorry, what? You were right. About everything. Emma sat on my couch, her hands twisting in her lap. I've been jealous of you for years. And I hated that I was jealous, because I'm supposed to be the successful one. I'm the surgeon. The golden child. But you. Her voice broke. You do what you do because you love it.
Because it matters to you.
Not for recognition or approval. And I've always envied that. I couldn't speak. I became a surgeon because Mom wanted me to, because it was prestigious and impressive. And I'm good at it, but... She looked up at me, tears in her eyes. I'm miserable, Sarah. I work 80 hours a week at a job that's killing me slowly, and I do it because if I stop, I have no idea who I am without it. Emma, when you won that Emmy, I realized something. You're braver than I'll ever be. You chose a path that made you happy, even though it disappointed Mom. And you stood up for yourself when she tried to make you feel small. I could never do that. She wiped her eyes. I'm sorry.
For sabotaging you.
For being cruel. For letting Mom treat you the way she did. You deserved better. You've always deserved better. I sat beside her, my mind reeling. Why are you telling me this now? Because I watched the Oprah interview, and I saw myself. the competitive sibling who was so scared of being overshadowed that she tore her sister down. Emma's laugh was bitter. And I realized I don't want to be that person anymore. I don't want to be someone who can't celebrate the people she loves. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Emma said, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm going to try to be better. Starting now. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw someone I'd never seen before. Someone vulnerable and lost and struggling. Okay, I said quietly. Let's try. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a beginning. The story continued to grow. News outlets interviewed first responders who shared similar experiences of being undervalued. Mental health professionals discussed the impact of conditional family approval. Social media exploded with #MyWorthMatters, people sharing their stories of finally standing up to dismissive family members. I became a symbol for something bigger than myself. It was terrifying and humbling. Then the network called with unexpected news. Sarah, we've been contacted by the National Association of Emergency Medical Technicians. They want you to speak at their annual convention. They want to honor you as an advocate for first responders. Rebecca's voice was excited. This is huge. 20,000 paramedics and EMTs from across the country. What would I even say? The same thing you've been saying. That their work matters. That they matter. Sarah, you've given voice to people who save lives every day but feel invisible. They need to hear from you. I agreed. The convention was in 3 weeks in Chicago. What I didn't know was that my mother would see the news coverage and make a decision that would change everything. The day before I left for Chicago, Dad called. Your mother wants to see you. She's ready to talk. Really talk. Dad, I'm flying out tomorrow. I know. But Sarah, she's different. Something shifted. Please, give her one chance. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her for coffee that afternoon. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in the corner booth, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Older. Tired. Thank you for coming, she said quietly as I sat down. Dad said you wanted to talk. She nodded, staring at her coffee cup. I've been doing a lot of thinking. And I need to tell you something I should have said 30 years ago. She looked up, her eyes red. I'm sorry. For all of it. For making you feel like you weren't enough. For comparing you to Emma. For being embarrassed instead of proud. Her voice broke. You were right. About everything. I felt my throat tighten. I spent so much time worrying about what other people thought. About appearances and status and having accomplished children I could show off. And I lost sight of what actually mattered, that you were happy, that you were doing meaningful work, that you were an extraordinary person exactly as you were. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I watched that Oprah interview 5 times. And each time, I saw myself through your eyes. And I was horrified. Mom. No, let me finish. Please. She reached across the table, her hand trembling. I don't know if I can undo the damage I've done, but I want to try. I want to be the mother you deserved all along. I want to celebrate you instead of diminish you. She sobbed. I want you to know that I am so proud of you. And I'm sorry it took you winning an Emmy and telling the world how I failed you before I could admit it. I was crying now too. I never wanted to hurt you. I know. But I needed to hurt. I needed to see what I'd become. She squeezed my hand. Can you forgive me? Not today, maybe not for a long time. But eventually, I looked at this woman who'd shaped so much of my pain and my strength, who'd made me fight so hard to prove my worth, who was finally seeing me. I think so, I whispered. But things have to change. They will. I promise they will. The convention center in Chicago was massive. 20,000 first responders filled the main hall. I stood backstage, my heart pounding, watching the crowd. Rebecca stood beside me. You nervous? Terrified. Good. Channel it. She smiled. You're about to remind 20,000 people why their work matters. Why they matter. You've got this. The announcer's voice boomed. Please welcome Emmy Award winner and paramedic advocate, Sarah Mitchell. I walked onto that stage to thunderous applause. 20,000 people on their feet. My colleagues, my peers, people who understood. I stood at the microphone, looking out at a sea of uniforms and faces, and felt something shift inside me. 6 months ago, my mother told me she was embarrassed by my career. She said driving an ambulance wasn't something she could brag about. I paused, and I believed her. Part of me thought maybe she was right. Maybe what I did wasn't important enough, prestigious enough, impressive enough. The room was silent. But then something happened. Someone saw the work we do, the real work, the hard work, the work that happens in the chaos and trauma and desperate moments when someone's life hangs in the balance. And they decided to tell that story, to show the world what we already know, that this work matters, that we matter. The applause started building. I won an Emmy for doing my job, for being a paramedic, for responding to calls and saving lives and showing up every single day to do the hardest work most people will never understand. My voice grew stronger. And if I could win an Emmy for it, if the world could finally see the value in what we do, then it was never about the work not being important. It was about other people's inability to see it. People were standing now, shouting agreement. So to every paramedic, every EMT, every first responder who's ever felt undervalued or dismissed or invisible, you are seen. Your work is essential. Your sacrifice is profound. And you don't need an Emmy or anyone's approval to know that you matter. You just need to know it yourself. The roar was deafening. I looked out at 20,000 people who finally felt seen, and I knew this was why everything had happened. Not for revenge. Not even for vindication. For this. For them. When I walked off that stage, my phone had a text from Mom. I'm watching the live stream. You're magnificent. I love you. I smiled and texted back, I love you too. The months that followed were surreal. The speech went viral, 15 million views in the first week. I was invited to speak at medical schools, first responder training programs, and conferences across the country. Netflix greenlit a second documentary following my journey after the Emmy.
But more importantly, my family changed.
Mom started volunteering with the local ambulance service, learning about what we actually did. She attended one of my shifts and watched me work, really watched, without judgment or disappointment. Afterward, she hugged me and said, I had no idea. I'm so sorry I didn't take the time to understand. Emma and I had coffee every week. She started therapy, working through the pressure she'd felt to be perfect. She even cut back her hours at the hospital. I'm learning to do this for me, not for validation, she told me. You taught me that. Dad sent me a handwritten letter, 3 pages of everything he'd been too scared to say. You've always been my hero, and I'm sorry I let you doubt it. Grandma framed a photo of me holding my Emmy and hung it in her living room, right above the piano. My brave girl, she called it. Mark, my ex, tried to reach out multiple times. I blocked him. Some bridges should stay burned. And me? I went back to work. Back to saving lives. But now I did it with something I'd never had before, the absolute certainty that I mattered, that my work was valuable, that I was enough exactly as I was. The scars from those years of feeling invisible didn't disappear overnight, but they became part of my story, not the definition of it. A year after winning the Emmy, Netflix invited me to present at the awards ceremony. They wanted me to introduce the Outstanding Documentary category to come full circle from nominee to presenter. I brought my whole family. Dad, Mom, Emma, Grandma. Even some of my colleagues from the ambulance service. Standing backstage in another designer dress, holding the envelope with the winner's name, I thought about how much had changed in 12 months. How I'd gone from feeling worthless to feeling whole. How my family had transformed from my greatest source of pain to my biggest supporters. You ready? Rebecca asked. She was nominated again for a different episode.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I walked onto that stage to massive applause. The audience remembered me, remembered my speech. I smiled, looking out at the crowd, and said, last year, I stood on this stage and won an Emmy for a documentary about being a paramedic. for doing work I loved but that others had dismissed. And I said something that resonated with a lot of people, that your worth isn't determined by other people's recognition. The audience was silent, listening. Tonight, I want to add something to that. Recognition is wonderful. Validation is powerful. But the real transformation happens when you decide to see your own worth, regardless of whether anyone else does. When you stop waiting for permission to be proud of yourself. I held up the envelope. These nominees have told incredible stories. They've illuminated lives and issues that matter. And whatever happens tonight, they've already succeeded in the most important way. They created something meaningful. I opened the envelope and announced the winner, Rebecca's episode about firefighters. She ran onto the stage, crying and laughing, and hugged me so hard we almost fell over. You did it again, I whispered.
We did it, she said.
Watching her give her acceptance speech, I felt something profound, complete, genuine happiness for someone else's success. No jealousy, no comparison, no inadequacy. Just joy. That's how I knew I'd truly healed. 6 months later, I was working a regular shift when my supervisor called me into her office. Mitchell, you've got a phone call. It's important. I picked up, confused. Hello. Sarah Mitchell? This is Dr. Patricia Chen from the American Medical Association. I'm calling with some remarkable news. She paused. You've been selected as the recipient of the National Healthcare Hero Award. It's given annually to one healthcare professional who's made an extraordinary impact through both their direct work and their advocacy. The ceremony is in 2 weeks in Washington, D.C. The Surgeon General will present it personally. I nearly dropped the phone. I'm sorry, what? You've saved countless lives as a paramedic. But more than that, you've elevated the entire profession. You've reminded the world that first responders are essential healthcare workers deserving of recognition and respect. Sarah, you've changed the conversation around what it means to be a hero. That's why we're honoring you. I call my family immediately. Everyone. The ceremony was broadcast on C-SPAN. My family sat in the front row, dressed up and beaming. As I walked onto that stage, I caught Mom's eye. She was crying, her hand over her heart, mouthing, "I'm so proud of you." The Surgeon General shook my hand and said, "You've inspired a generation of first responders. Thank you for your service." As I accepted the award, I thought about that dinner table 18 months ago, about my mother saying she was embarrassed, about feeling invisible and worthless, about believing I'd never be enough. And I smiled. I became a paramedic because I wanted to matter, I said into the microphone. I wanted to do work that was undeniably important. But what I've learned is that I always mattered. The work always mattered. I just needed to believe it myself before anyone else could. I looked at my family, at Mom, who'd learned to see me, at Emma, who'd learned to support me, at Dad, who'd found his voice, at Grandma, who'd always known. This award isn't just for me. It's for every person who's ever felt underestimated, dismissed, or invisible, who's been told their work doesn't matter or their dreams aren't important enough. To all of you, you are enough. You've always been enough. And someday, the people who couldn't see it will realize what they missed. The applause was thunderous. But the sound I heard most clearly was my mother's voice, cutting through the noise. That's my daughter. That's my daughter up there. After years of silence, she was finally shouting my name. And I realized I'd won. Not because I'd proven anything to them, but because I'd proven everything to myself. The little girl who wanted her mother's approval had grown into a woman who didn't need it anymore, who knew her own worth without waiting for someone else to announce it. That was the real victory. That night, back at the hotel, Mom knocked on my door. When I opened it, she handed me a small box. "I bought this a week after your Emmy win," she said. "But I was too proud to give it to you. Too stubborn to admit I'd been wrong." She smiled, tears in her eyes. "I'm not too proud anymore." Inside was a silver necklace with a small pendant, an ambulance with wings. "For my guardian angel," Mom whispered. "The one who saves lives. The one who saved our family by refusing to let us diminish her anymore." I put it on, and she clasped it around my neck. I love you, Sarah. Not for the awards or the recognition or the fame. I love you for who you've always been, brave and compassionate and strong. I'm sorry it took me so long to say it. I love you too, Mom. We stood there, holding each other, two imperfect people who'd finally found their way to understanding. My phone buzzed. A message from Rebecca. Netflix wants to do a series. Following your work, your advocacy, everything. You interested? I looked at Mom, at the necklace around my neck, at the award on the dresser. I thought about the life I'd built from the ashes of feeling worthless, about the people I'd helped and inspired, about the woman I'd become. I texted back, let's talk, because my story wasn't over. It was just beginning. And this time, I was writing it on my own terms.